What's up, peeps? Welcome back to Rebranding Safety. If you're new here, Rebranding Safety is changing the perception of health and safety, and we do that right here on the YouTube channel. We do that on the podcast as well. This video is a pod clip from a podcast. You can get the podcast on pretty much any platform. Just search Rebranding Safety. Rebranding Safety is sponsored by Paradigm Human Performance HSE subscription service, the perfect solution for those of you in small, medium-sized enterprise that feel like you're just spinning loads of plates all the time. Without further ado, let's get into today's pod clip.
If we go sort of back a little bit to answer the question you said before, about the people that you have in the room, that's one of the most enjoyable things about being a facilitative style of trainer. But it's also one of the most daunting things as well, because you don't know who you're going to have. Now, I mentioned before with some of the training that we do, we have our pilot training, so we have pilot initials, and we do upgrade training as well. So when people become a captain from being a first officer, there's some CRM training courses for that. Same with cabin crew, when they're junior to senior cabin crew, there's a course for that as well. But the recurrent training we often do as a combined session. So you have the pilots and the cabin crew in the same room together, and we're covering, it could be a case study, some of the syllabus, whatever. But then of course you suddenly think, well, hang on a sec, I can't go and do all this like piloty stuff because the cabin crew are just going to not be interested and they're going to get lost. And it's a really fine balance actually between, making it relevant to both sides of the operation, between making it relevant to the cabin crew, their experiences, their working environment, and then also keeping the pilots entertained, because the pilots love talking about flying. I mean, they love doing their piloty stuff, frankly. So you need to kind of keep them entertained. And so I would argue that, out of all the courses we do, the combined session is probably the most difficult as a trainer, because you have to write courses that you can do with 25 people or you can do with 5 people. You can't guarantee that you're always going to have that magic 16 people in a room, for example. You might only have 5 people one day, they might all be cabin crew. You might have 3 people one day, they might all be pilots. You might have 26 people one day, they could be a half split of pilots and cabin crew. And then, with my previous operator, we had different fleets as well. So I had jet pilots and Dash 8 pilots. I had cabin crew that were type rated on both, on the basis that had both fleets. Some cabin crew were only Dash 8, some people were only jet, so you've got all this mix. You can't just sort of like go off and like, okay, let's have a look at a case study about an E-jet, because then the Dash people are thinking, oh God, jets, whatever. Equally, you focus it on the Dash, bloody Dash, like this. And so, you've got to really balance it, and being able to get that engagement and being able to get people in that class to not only feel valued, validated, making it relevant to them as individuals, not just as their job role, but to them as a person, whilst actually delivering some effective training, I would say is probably one of the hardest gigs that there is. And like I said, it requires quite a broad knowledge of the working environment and the subject in order to adapt whatever it is you're doing. Every single lesson you do, you have to adapt it to the room.